Greetings YouTube, DJ Bonebreaker here on June 12th, 2021 at the Rockhill Furnace Yard of the East Broadtop Railroad, about to do something that I haven't done in almost 10 years. And that is, I'm about to ride one of the trains. I mean, granted, while they've done quite a bit of really awesome work with restoring their track and everything so far, they still haven't got the track restored out to the original terminus, the picnic grove. So train ride's going to be a little bit short today, but still I'm excited because this is the first time, you know, in like almost 10 years that they've been running the trains. So yeah, anyways, I'll see you guys in a bit for that, hopefully. Anything, if you see anything else interesting. Alright, first train ride since 2011. Here we go.
Somebody's picked the open car. Yeah? I would have gone. Also known as a cinder car. Yeah, right. No steamy today, so. Now I will collect everybody's tickets. Or I'll have to kick you off.
Traveling through the picturesque countryside here in Huntington County, Pennsylvania.
I do not have a punch. We're ripping tickets for right now. I have found out that there is a huge following in need for ticket punching designs. I am not qualified for that at all. All the rest of them?
bed's filled up pretty high right around here. And this is the current end of the line. We still need to do track to restore the track out past this point right here. You can see, still haven't really got that track fixed up quite yet, but we're working on it. And time to head back. I guess I'll see you guys back at the train station, because it's basically the same thing, only in reverse from here. And here we are back at the station. There's a few other things I want to take some videos of, so I'll see you guys when I get around to that part. And I hope you enjoy it. Well, here's something you don't see too often in central Pennsylvania. This is a former San Diego trolley that was retired about 6 or 7 years ago, part of their fleet modernization system, and it ended up getting donated to the Rockhill Trolley Museum here in Rockhill Furnace, Pennsylvania. When I was stationed in stationed on the USS Bellewood, which was home ported out of San Diego, I rode light rail vehicles, part of the San Diego trolley system, many times while I was out there to get, around San Diego and surrounding areas. I think I'd actually see one of those out here of all places. But yeah, it's a Siemens light rail vehicle. I'm trying to remember the exact number. I'll throw that up at the bottom of the screen, but yeah, rather unique part of the Rockhill Trolley Museum collection. Don't know if I actually get to ride it today or if they just have it on display, because today's Johnstown Day at the museum, but I mean, they got it running here, so one of the attractions. And I'll see you guys for the next bit of the thing. Alright, part of our experience here today I'm on the 311 trolley car at the Rockhill Trolley Museum, which is right across the street from the train station. So, time to take a trip on a vintage streetcar. Part of the Y that the train uses to turn around, so it's actually dual gauge. The rail that's on the inside is the 3-foot gauge that the train uses, and the outside rail is standard for 8-foot 8.5 inches that the trolley uses. So about the only place in Pennsylvania you actually see this sort of track configuration. One of the many interesting things you'll find at this place.
This is typical of country trolley lines years gone by. You met another trolley out in the middle of nowhere and you waited a while for them to come. Probably about the length of time we're going to wait for them. But I'll talk about, we usually talk a little bit about the trolley when we get out to the end of the line. I'll tell you some about it right now. This car was built in 1922 by the Wasson Company of Springfield, Massachusetts. It was built to run in Bangor, Maine, and it ran there until 1940 when they sold it to a used trolley dealer in Brooklyn, and there were things like that back then. And in 1941, he turned around and sold it to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and you'll notice we have it painted up in Johnstown colors, and it ran there till their last day of service in 1960.
They're calling me.
They are?
I think tenants is calling me.
Dispatch.
Wheelchair camera Dean is going to come over. I'll be over in the next 15-20 minutes. I just spoke with him.
Okay, I'm going to let you, since you're back there knowing what's going on, I'm going to let you kind of handle the flow here for a bit. 355 is coming to pass us here at Althoff. Should be here in about 3 minutes. So you decide whether to bring him in or not, and you'll have to let us know where you are and when you're ready to go. Over.
See that?
Radios play no part at all in the trolley industry. We do it because they're safe. We are an all-volunteer organization. We not only don't we pay the motormen and the conductors and the people who cut the grass, but we charge them all $50 a year for the privilege of working, and if you'd like to join us on that basis, we'd be tickled to talk to you about a membership. Now, Shannon lives pretty close. She's about an hour away. I live in Reading. That's about 2 hours away. Our president lives in Allentown. That's about 3 hours away. Guy just called me, comes from Washington, D.C. That's a little further than that away. We got a guy working the shop from Virginia today. We got people come from Michigan, and until he passed away a year ago, we had a guy from Texas. You can't live too far away to be an active member here. I was telling you a little bit about this trolley. One of the things they used this for in the later days in Johnstown was to bring people back from the steel mill. Because if you look at some of the other trolleys that were running, you'll see the rattan seats. They didn't want their dirty clothes all over those seats, so they thought these seats they could clean a lot more easily. If you have any questions about the trolley or anything that we're going along, feel free to ask, and we'll do our best to. Here they come.
I want to get out of their way there.
So.
No, that's right.
I thought you wanted to get them.
Well, that's why I moved from there. I moved from there over here.
Oh,
Come back over here.
I think I'm out of the way.
Actually, you were good for this. You shot right under your arm, so.
I wanted to be out of your way. I saw the camera go up and I thought, I'm going to come this way so you get a nice picture.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
generally run our trolleys with 2 operators, which is what trolley companies did in the early days. But this car was designed specifically to be run by 1 operator. Back in the teens, 19-teens, in the big cities, and a little bit later than that in smaller towns, they started going out on strike. They used to pay the motorman conductors like 11 to 13 cents an hour, and they went out on strike. And the companies responded by taking those cars that needed 2 men to operate out and burning them up and buying cars like this that could be run with 1 man, and they could give the motorman a small raise and fire the conductors. And it was typical labor management relations. The company sent a nice letter to all the stockholders telling what a great deal they got. And the union sent a nice letter to all the motormen telling what a great deal they got, and everybody who was still employed was happy. But the reason it's called a dead man controller is that you might notice that when we're running it, before we can release the brake, we must hold that down. We must continue to hold it down until we apply the brake again. If we don't, the brakes will fly on, this little thing will punch the handle forward and cut our power off, and the car will sit here until somebody finds out why it never came home. Okay, I think we're ready to go again. 355. I told Dave Galpin to regulate what you're doing here. He's got 1019 out there getting ready for a trip somewhere or other here. So see if he's ready for you in there.
355, 1019.
First, you might as well let it for us. Thank you. Big stuff.
Big stuff. Other big stuff coming up there. Yeah. He's big tall like this guy. He had longer legs.
Well, the trolley business started around 1888, more or less. Depends on who you talk to. Now, Scranton, Pennsylvania started in 1887 and they claimed to be first. Richmond, Virginia started in 1888 and they claimed to be first. Cleveland started in 1886 and doesn't make any claim at all because they didn't last more than 6 months, so they didn't count. Now, Scranton's claim is that they were the first continuously operating streetcar system in the country, and it's really true. And Richmond's claim is that they were designed by Frank Sprague, who all the trolley companies that formed thereafter used his equipment, and including Scranton, that switched over. And so they claim that they were the first. So it's all how you parse the language. But the trolleys came in, as I say, around 1888. Now, before that, you could live as far from where you worked as you wanted to walk to work. For most people, that was like a across the street. And the trolleys changed all that. Now you could live 10 miles over there, you could work 10 miles over here, and you had a way to get there at a reasonable rate. But what people don't think about is that the trolley company usually also was the electricity provider. Before there were trolleys, there was also no electricity. So it wasn't that you just didn't have a ride, you didn't have anything. You know, like, so if you don't have electricity, what's missing? Well, of course, electric lights, toasters, washing machines. How about you can't pump up water pressure to have water running in the house? Now you got to build a little building out back for dire necessities, put a wooden tub in the kitchen, and heat water on a wooden stove for it every Saturday night. You can all share it on Saturday night whether you need it or not. So if you want to know what people thought about the trolley, you look up an encyclopedia article written about 1900, and it's very interesting because they tell you the trolley is the greatest invention of all time, because for them it was. And they call the 20th century the trolley age. Just like later in the same century, they called it the space age or the computer age, kind of depended on when. And maybe they should have called it the encyclopedia age, because I don't think they're around anymore either. Now everybody's on the internet.
Well, looks like they actually did get the San Diego trolley running today.
You need three things to make iron. You need iron ore. Those on this side probably noticed that the stream going alongside of us back there was colored from the iron deposits in it. The water's running clear now, but it's running right out of the old iron mine, and for a long time you know, it was washing stuff out of that mine. There were, we can put it in the floor or something. In case we need it again. There were more mines on down the valley. This was originally a narrow gauge branch line of the East Broad Top Railroad. So there were mines down below Shade Gap that they brought up the iron ore by train. So you needed the iron. Second thing you needed was fuel. Well, they started by cutting every tree within 35 miles of here. And then after that, they moved over to coal. By that time, the East Broad Top was here, and they were in the coal business. And the third thing you need is flux. You need limestone. There's a limestone quarry just a quarter mile behind where we turned around today, and they're still in business. So you would take all those things in, and you'd use it to make pig iron. We're going to stop up there where the furnace was. I'll give you a chance to look at it briefly, and then we'll head on back. Here's a picture of the diagram of the Rockhill iron furnace as it stood here between 1876 and 1908. If you notice in the picture the three-story building with the cupola on the top, that's the ruin we're sitting next to right here. Iron back then was like plastic today, in not that it was material like it, but it was used like plastic for everything. So all your toys and your kitchen utensils and everything were made out of iron in those days. It was very hard, sturdy stuff, but if you dropped it on the concrete, it would shatter. And for that reason, when alternatives came along, they were generally preferred. They made about 60,000 tons of it here a year, and they had close to 700 or 800 employees working full-time, round the clock, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, every day but Christmas. They didn't make any of those things here. They just made pig iron. They hauled it up on the Pennsylvania Railroad, or on the East Broad Top to Mount Union, and then out on the Pennsylvania Railroad to other places that could melt it down and make useful things out of it.
Okay, I'm here at the Robertsdale station for the East Broad Top Railroad, which was formerly the end of the line back in the common carrier days. Because this is basically where all the coal mines would send their, mine carts down to, and then they load the hoppers here and then send them on up the line. Now, though, the station and the area around it is part of the Friends East Broad Top Railroad Museum. And as part of the ongoing restoration projects, they've actually managed to rehabilitate part of the line here and brought several East Broad Top hoppers down and placed them out on display here. As a miner, you're not getting paid for rock, you're only getting paid for coal. The coal seams here on the east side of the Broad Top Mountain. There are many veins, but there were only 3 or 4 of them that were thick enough to be worth the trouble of mining. The thickest of them, at its best, was maybe 6 or 7 feet thick, and the next one was 4 feet thick, and the next one was 3 feet thick. So this is a real problem because you're not getting paid for all that other stuff. Right, so you're working in tight quarters, and getting oxygen to you is a real problem. So they built fans to push air in or pull air out.
I'm going to be wrong, but I'm going to say push it in.
Okay, what's wrong with pushing air in?
It could come back out.
No, what's wrong with it is that you're compressing it. And a coal mine is full of particulate matter. A lot of it coal, and you compress oxygen and a combustible item, and eventually it will combust. So, in fact, you create a vacuum and you pull air out. So that's what this, so I hope everyone's over far enough. You see the massive size of those blades. So this is the air house. This would do both mine number 1, which is just a few feet that way, and mine 5, which is a little bit farther off to our left.
Where was it pulling out?
There's a hole in the foundation back into the hill on the wall straight opposite us. And within the mine, then, that means you have means of controlling airflow, which in many cases was just one of the odd commodities that's hauled by the East Broad Top is a whole lot of burlap. Because you don't build a wall and put a door. You hang burlap down to control where the air can flow the easiest. Because you don't want to bother pulling air to the areas that you're not working today. Right, so you just put down.
How many miners will be in, like the one mine at a time?
Depends on the mine. Mine 1 was a pretty big mine. Worked a long time. But as far as how many would be working on any given day, I'm gonna take a wild guess and say 50, 60. Really? I mean, it takes a lot of guys. Right. Even if you're working a comparatively small area.
How was that powered?
In the early days, steam. So there would have been a steam cylinder here. In the later days, it was replaced by a large electric motor that ran. They hauled the loaded mine cars up using a winch and cable system. But once you were underground, the mine cars were moved from what they would call gallery, a large room, to the working face by mules. Very small mules, because again, 7 feet maximum, right? So they bred really small mules. We saw a mule shoe once and had somebody who claimed to understand. I'm from suburbia, so what do I know? But he explained that it was a number 2 mule shoe. It was about that big, which means that these mules were a little bit bigger than a real big dog, but not much more than that.
Productions of mules.
Yes. And so they used a lot of them. There were, again, we say coal miner, and we just make that an all-encompassing term. That's everybody who works at a coal mine. There's very unique and specialized jobs. There's mule drivers, and that's what they do, is they're just controlling the mules and controlling the mine cars as the mules move them along. There's mule skinners, because let's face it, you got a real limited life expectancy if you're a mule working in the mine. And various other, unique jobs, because it's much like an assembly line, right? You do the same thing repetitively, you get good at it, it's maybe pretty boring, but that's how you as an employer gain efficiency. Anyway, so we are at the mule barn. This is probably the mule pen. You can see the remnants of a post, fence post here, and in a second you'll walk across the remnants of the foundation. Mule barn.
Yeah.
This is the boiler house. To power your powerhouse. And, back in the day, not that long ago, within my grandfather's lifetime, if you wanted to do something, the first words out of somebody's mouth were not open the laptop, right? The first words were build a fire, boil some water, get yourself a steam engine. Now you've got mechanical advantage. So this is where the boilers would be. I believe there were two. I believe the boilers were on the outer, and the inner was coal supply to power them. And you can see they were surrounded by a larger structure, which is pretty much gone, except you can see the remains of the foundations around. And somewhere over here. I'm not sticking my hand in anything. Try to get bit. Yeah, they were early users of concrete.
Had the concrete up here.
Yeah. Okay. Whether they brought it up liquid or whether they bring up dry. Yeah. Make it here. So the thing about those wonderful cables is you're going to ask them to go around lots of corners because life is not straight. So this is a block that had supports which held onto I believe the correct word is a sheave, not a shiv. That's what you kill people with if you're in prison, I believe. A sheave, which is just a big flanged wheel, right, so it can bend the cable around corners. So that's what that was.
But the powerhouse is over there. So why
Cable
would the
bends
cable
all
come
around.
all the way around here?
Well, because remember, you're not just carrying cars up, you're carrying them down. So you've got this.
So
it's
would have
going
gone
both
from
ways.
that way, yeah. Okay.
Very cool. Here you are at the opening of Mine 5. That's concrete portal.
So pretty flat here, so it must head down. Yeah. Let's push it into the side of it.
Most of it is collapsed. Just that little part in between the trees that isn't.
So once again, for the Tech and Travel channel, until next time, this is DJ Bonebreaker signing off.